Hey, welcome to Starbound. I'm Daniel Pierce, and I'm going to be your narrator today. Nearly 500 supporters get early access to our stories. That's including Sunspire Academy and Frarian and Rimiki. If you'd like to unlock early access and support our new episodes and series, tap join below and become a Starbound member today. Now, let's get into today's story. Dallas Thornton's bulky frame navigated through the crowded Renaissance Fair entrance, his bushy red beard practically quivering with excitement as he waved a handful of tickets like battle flags.
Come on, people and non-people! The joust starts at noon, and we need to scope out the blacksmith demonstrations before that!
His booming voice cut through the ambient noise of lute music and merchants hawking their wares. Trailing behind him, Mai Tanaka adjusted her baseball cap and suppressed a smile. Dallas, we have 6 hours. The fair isn't going to evaporate if we don't see everything in the first 20 minutes. Krill, the reptilian scholar, carefully documented the entrance with a slim recording device, his emerald scales shifting subtly toward a more vibrant green as his crest rose with interest.
Fascinating. Humans dedicate considerable resources to reenacting periods they've technologically outgrown. The anthropological implications are
boring, Dallas interrupted, throwing a meaty arm around the alien's shoulders.
We're not here for a lecture, Professor Scales. We're here to have fun, right, Puff?
The smallest member of their group, a transparent containment suit housing swirling blue-green gases, bounced excitedly. Atmospheric particulate count 347% higher than standard Earth baseline. Delightful! Puff's echoing voice emanated from a speaker near the top of the suit, which was currently sampling air through a small intake valve. Behind them, the obsidian skin roan ducked to avoid a banner strung between two wooden posts. At 6'6", the silicon-based alien towered over most of the humans at the fair, drawing curious glances that he seemed to relish.
Is this helmet authentic 11th century design? Roan asked, stooping to examine a vendor's display. His surface cracked slightly, revealing orange energy beneath as he picked up a comically small metal helmet.
The craftsmanship appears rudimentary compared to Magmaran forged sculpting.
That's made in China, buddy,
the vendor said with a wink.
But don't tell anyone.
First up, mead! You haven't experienced a proper Renaissance fair until you've had honey wine in a plastic cup while watching grown men hit each other with sticks.
I thought the point was historical accuracy, Mai said, already following him toward a wooden booth with a hand-painted sign reading, Ye Old Meadery.
Historical accuracy is what I tell the department head when I expense these trips,
Dallas replied with a grin.
The point is turkey legs the size of your forearm and watching jesters make dirty jokes that go over kids' heads.
Krill's recording device whirred as he captured the exchange.
Addendum to field notes. Human recreation often involves deliberate historical inaccuracy paired with consumption of fermented beverages. Possible correlation to the species' peculiar relationship with their own past.
Lighten up, Dallas said, handing Krill a plastic cup of amber liquid.
Drink your mead and stop analyzing everything.
The alien sniffed the beverage cautiously, his crest flattening slightly.
I've cataloged 37 distinct bacterial cultures in this cup alone.
That's part of the charm, Dallas laughed, downing half his cup in one gulp. Mai clinked her cup against Krill's. It's safe, I promise. Your digestive system can handle it.
I've consumed far worse in the name of research,
Krill admitted, taking a tentative sip. His eyes widened slightly.
Intriguing. The flavor profile is unexpectedly complex.
Puff's containment suit emitted a soft whine as a small tube extended into the mead cup, drawing up a minuscule amount for analysis. Fermentation detected. Alcohol content 8.2%. Honey markers present. Adding to taste database. Roan had already finished his cup and was examining it with disappointment.
Our magma our drinking vessels self-heat and enhance flavor compounds based on individual palate preferences. Yeah, well, on Earth we make do with disposable plasticware, Dallas replied cheerfully. Now, who wants to see some falconry?
The group made their way through the fair, passing jugglers, lute players, and vendors selling everything from dragon sculptures to leather-bound journals. Krill continued documenting each attraction with scientific detachment that gradually gave way to genuine interest. Puff bounced from stall to stall, sampling the air around food vendors with particular enthusiasm. Roan, meanwhile, stopped at every weapons display, comparing Earth's medieval armaments to his homeworld's ancient arsenal.
Your ancestors used these to kill each other,
Roan asked, holding up a mace with surprising gentleness considering his massive obsidian hands.
Seems inefficient. That's rich coming from a species that used to throw literal magma at each other,
Dallas countered. Roan's surface cracked in what they'd all come to recognize as his equivalent of a smile.
True, but magma has multiple applications. This,
he waved the mace,
one-dimensional.
You could use it to tenderize meat, May suggested, or crack very large nuts.
Or signal for help if you're stranded on a mountainside, Dallas added. Multi-purpose!
A man in elaborate chainmail approached them, eyeing Roan nervously. Sir, I must ask you to return the historical artifact to its display.
Apologies,
Roan said, carefully placing the mace back on its stand.
I was merely appreciating your ancestors' creativity and bludgeoning tools.
The man backed away slowly. You're scaring the locals, May murmured. Dallas checked his watch.
Oh, almost time for the midday feast!
The food area of long wooden tables under open-air tents, surrounded by various stalls serving period-inappropriate cuisine with period-somewhat appropriate names. Dallas led the charge, returning to their table with a tray loaded with turkey legs, meat pies, and what he claimed was authentic medieval corn on the cob. Corn didn't exist in medieval Europe, May pointed out, accepting a turkey leg nonetheless. It's native to the Americas.
Details, Dallas waved dismissively. The queen over there is wearing eyeshadow. I think we left historical accuracy behind a while ago.
Krill examined his meat pie with scientific interest.
The pastry-to-filling ratio suggests this was designed for easy handling rather than nutritional balance. That's the point, Dallas said through a mouthful of turkey. Medieval fast food.
Puff had positioned his containment suit at the table, though he couldn't actually eat the food. Instead, a small sampling tube drew in the aromas, analyzing the compounds. Detecting high levels of saturated fats and sodium. Human comfort food indicators at maximum. Roan was staring at his turkey leg with fascination.
On Magmara, we don't have birds. All our food sources are mineral-based or grown in volcanic vents.
He took an experimental bite, and orange energy flared beneath his obsidian surface.
Fascinating texture.
Look, May said, gesturing toward an adjacent field where people were gathering. I think there's some kind of demonstration starting. A man in leather armor strode into the center of the field, carrying what appeared to be a blunted sword.
Gather round, good folk of the realm! Sir Roderick will now demonstrate authentic medieval combat techniques passed down through generations of knights and warriors.
The group made their way closer, Dallas practically bouncing with excitement.
Oh, this is great! I can point out all the historical inaccuracies.
Sir Roderick began demonstrating sword stances and strikes against a wooden dummy, narrating each move with theatrical flair.
The High God, the Ox God, the Fool's God.
Krill leaned toward Dallas.
Those movements seem inefficient. His center of gravity is poorly balanced, and his strike angles leave multiple vulnerabilities. Tell me about it,
Dallas whispered back.
Real medieval combat was brutal and direct. None of this fancy footwork. You just try to knock the other guy down and stab him through a gap in his armor.
Puff's gases swirled rapidly in his containment suit. Query, why engage in direct combat when chemical warfare is an option? My ancestors could alter atmospheric composition from kilometers away. Not exactly sporting, May replied. Roan watched the demonstration with growing disbelief.
This is absurd. By the time my ancestors had reached this level of metallurgy, they had already mapped our entire solar system and established colonies on 3 moons. Seriously?
Dallas turned to him, momentarily distracted from the demonstration.
When was this? Approximately 50,000 of your Earth years ago, Roan said, while your species was still figuring out how to sharpen sticks.
Krill nodded, his crest rising slightly.
Similarly, Saurums had achieved controlled nuclear fusion while humans were still burning witches and dying of plague.
Excuse me, Puff interjected, gases swirling indignantly. Nebulons had mastered weather control when Earth mammals were still growing thumbs. We could generate or disperse storms across an entire hemisphere.
Well, now you're just showing off, Dallas grumbled.
What none of them noticed was the tall, broad-shouldered man who had paused behind their table, listening to their conversation with growing interest. He wore an ornate costume that combined elements of medieval nobility with subtle theatrical flair, an embroidered doublet over a muscular frame, leather pants that had seen actual use rather than just costume wear, and a medallion that caught the sunlight as he moved closer.
Interesting conversation,
the man said, his deep voice cutting through their banter. They turned to see him standing with arms crossed, a calculating smile on his face. Despite his Renaissance attire, there was something distinctively modern about his stance, the balanced poise of someone used to physical performance.
The name's Jameson Blackwell,
he announced, extending a hand toward Dallas.
I run the tournament here at the Fair of Ages.
Dallas's eyes widened in recognition.
Holy shit! You're the Sovereign! 5-time heavyweight champion! I watched your Cage of Carnage match against the Demolisher back in 2057!
Jameson's smile tightened almost imperceptibly.
Former champion. These days I prefer Tournament Master.
He looked around at the group, his gaze lingering on each of the aliens.
Couldn't help overhearing your friends' assessment of our humble human combat displays.
May winced. They didn't mean anything by it.
No,
Jameson interrupted, pulling up a chair and sitting down with casual authority.
I'm genuinely intrigued. So your ancestors had space travel while we were still hitting each other with metal sticks.
Krill's scales darkened slightly.
I may have exaggerated for rhetorical effect, a common human conversational technique I've adopted. But the general timeline is accurate.
Jameson pressed.
Yes,
Roan admitted.
My species developed technology at an accelerated rate compared to humans, primarily due to the extreme conditions of our homeworld necessitating innovation.
Jameson nodded thoughtfully, then leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table.
So, if I understand correctly, your ancestors had fancy space guns and flying machines, while my ancestors were jousting and dying of dysentery. That's one way to put it,
Krill said cautiously. Jameson's face broke into a broad grin.
Well then, I have a proposition for you.
He gestured expansively around the fair.
This whole place is about celebrating human history, warts and all. What if we add a new attraction, something truly unique? I'm listening,
Dallas said, leaning forward eagerly.
A tournament,
Jameson announced.
Your alien friends using their ancestral combat gear against human fighters using only medieval technology and bare hands.
Puff's gases swirled rapidly. Query, purpose of such confrontation?
Entertainment,
Jameson declared.
Plus, It settles a question. Does advanced technology always beat good old-fashioned human ingenuity and muscle?
He spread his hands.
The winner gets bragging rights and a custom-made championship belt.
Dallas looked around at the group, his eyes bright with excitement.
That sounds awesome.
May gave him a sharp look. Are you serious? This is ridiculous.
Is it?
Jameson asked, his voice dropping to a more serious tone.
Look, attendance has been dropping for the past 3 years. The Renaissance Fair circuit isn't what it used to be. People want something new, something they can't see anywhere else.
He gestured towards the aliens.
This could be it.
Krill's scientific curiosity seemed piqued.
A controlled experiment in combat methodology across species. Fascinating premise. It's not an experiment, it's entertainment.
Jameson corrected.
Nobody gets hurt. Not badly, anyway. Just enough danger to make it exciting.
Roan's surface cracked with orange energy. On Magmara, we have similar ritual competitions to demonstrate physical prowess. I find this concept appealing.
I don't know, May said skeptically. What exactly would this involve?
Jameson's smile widened.
Just leave that to me. If your friends are willing, I'll handle all the arrangements. The tournament starts at sunset.
He stood up, giving them a theatrical bow.
Think it over. If you're interested, meet me at the jousting field at 4 o'clock.
With that, he strode away, stopping occasionally to greet fairgoers with practiced charm.
We're doing it,
Dallas declared the moment Jameson was out of earshot.
We most certainly are not, May countered. This is exactly the kind of thing that ends up on intergalactic incident reports.
Krill's crest rose with interest.
Actually, I'm inclined to participate. The cultural exchange value alone would be significant. Same, Roan agreed. I've watched many human combat sports broadcasts. This would be an opportunity to participate rather than merely observe.
Puff's gases formed patterns that they'd come to recognize as excitement.
Atmospheric interaction with varied biological entities during heightened physical stress. Valuable data collection opportunity.
May looked at each of them in disbelief, then at Dallas's pleading expression, and finally threw up her hands.
Fine, but when someone ends up in the emergency room, or whatever the alien equivalent is, don't say I didn't warn you.
Dallas grinned triumphantly.
This is going to be legendary!
At 4 o'clock, they assembled at the jousting field, where Jameson waited with a tablet and a measuring tape. He looked up as they approached, a smile spreading across his face.
I knew you'd come. Excellent.
He gestured toward a nearby tent.
That's our prep area. We'll need to take some measurements for safety equipment and discuss the rules.
Inside the tent, 3 other humans waited. Jameson introduced them with a ringmaster's flair.
This is Eleanor Martinez, former women's champion known as the Executioner.
He indicated a powerfully built woman with multiple tattoos who nodded curtly in greeting.
Bill Johnson, a.k.a. Bone Crusher.
Jameson continued, gesturing toward a bearded man who was examining a piece of chainmail.
And Dwayne Miller, the Mountain.
The largest human any of them had ever seen inclined his head politely. Standing at 6'9", Dwayne even towered over Roan.
My wrestlers,
Jameson explained.
All retired from the professional circuit, but they helped me out with special events.
Wrestlers? May asked sharply. I thought this was supposed to be about medieval combat.
Jameson waved dismissively.
Renaissance Fair's taken certain creative liberties with history. Wrestling has been around since ancient times, and our version incorporates elements of historical combat styles.
He clapped his hands together.
Now, let's talk rules.
The rules, as Jameson outlined them, were straightforward. Each alien would face a human champion in single combat, followed by a tag team finale. Victory would come by pinfall submission or being thrown from the ring.
And what about our combat gear?
Krill asked.
That's the beauty of it,
Jameson replied.
You'll use whatever your ancestors would have used during the equivalent of Earth's medieval period. We humans will use period-appropriate technology or just our bare hands.
That hardly seems fair, May pointed out. Their ancestral tech was far more advanced. Jameson grinned.
That's what will make our victory all the more impressive.
Dallas bounced on his heels with excitement.
This is going to be epic! When do we start? The tournament begins at 7, Jameson said. That gives you 3 hours to prepare. I suggest your friends retrieve whatever equipment they need from their ship.
Krill, Puff, and Roand exchanged looks.
We accept these terms,
Krill declared, his scales brightening with anticipation. As they left the tent, May pulled Dallas aside. Something doesn't feel right about this. Jameson seems too confident.
He's a showman, Dallas replied. That's his job. Besides, there's no way humans with medieval tech can beat alien technology thousands of years more advanced.
May frowned. I hope you're right. The aliens returned to the ship, which was parked in a designated spacecraft-only section of the fair's parking lot, a recent addition to Renaissance fairs ever since first contact 5 years ago. Inside, they retrieved their ceremonial combat gear, which they'd brought to Earth mainly for cultural exhibitions. Krill's scaled armor gleamed under the ship's lights, each plate capable of adapting to his movements and hardening on impact. Puff's containment suit was enhanced with force-field technology that should prevent any physical contact while allowing Puff to exert force outward. Roan's liquid metal armor flowed across his obsidian body, designed to absorb and redistribute impact energy.
These are ceremonial pieces,
Krill noted as they examined their gear.
Not designed for actual combat, so we upgrade them,
Roan suggested, orange energy crackling beneath his surface.
The ship has a fabrication unit. We could enhance these with modern nanotechnology.
Is that allowed? Puff asked, gases swirling with concern. Krill's crest rose slightly.
Jameson specified ancestral combat gear. He didn't prohibit modifications. Then it is settled, Roan declared. We enhance our gear and show these humans what real technology can do.
Meanwhile, back at the fair, Jameson gathered his wrestlers in a secluded area behind the tournament tent.
Here's what we know about our extraterrestrial friends,
he said, pulling up detailed schematics on his tablet.
Krill's species relies on adaptive scale technology that responds to pressure and movement. The scales are nearly impenetrable to conventional weapons, but they have a critical weakness.
He zoomed in on a particular section.
The connecting tissue between scales is vulnerable to direct manipulation. A proper grip applied here,
he indicated a spot,
will cause the entire system to temporarily malfunction.
Where'd you get this information? Eleanor asked, studying the schematics.
Let's just say I have contacts in the Interspecies Cultural Exchange Commission,
Jameson replied with a cryptic smile. He swiped to another screen.
Puff's containment suit uses a standard Nebulon force field configuration. The field oscillates at this specific frequency.
He pointed to a series of numbers.
A precisely aimed strike that matches the counter frequency will momentarily disrupt it.
And you expect us to calculate oscillation frequencies in the middle of a match? Dwayne asked skeptically.
No need,
Jameson said, holding up what looked like ordinary wrestling wristbands.
These are calibrated to emit the exact counter frequency on impact. Just make sure you hit the right spot.
This feels a bit like cheating, Bill commented, stroking his beard thoughtfully.
It's strategy,
Jameson corrected.
They're using technology. We're using intelligence. Besides, this is about putting on a good show. The audience doesn't want to see humans getting trounced by alien tech. They want drama, suspense, unexpected twist.
And what about the silicon guy? Eleanor asked. Jameson's smile widened.
That's where it gets interesting. Roan's liquid metal armor absorbs and redistributes impact energy, making it nearly impossible to damage through brute force. However,
he pulled up another diagram.
Silicone-based structures have a natural resonant frequency. If you can match it with a precisely delivered strike, you can temporarily solidify the liquid metal.
Let me guess, Dwayne said. These wristbands do that too.
Exactly,
Jameson confirmed.
One good elbow strike to the central mass, and his fancy armor freezes solid for about 3 seconds. More than enough time for a follow-up move.
And they won't suspect anything? Bill asked.
Jameson shrugged. They'll think it was just some good old-fashioned human ingenuity, which, in a way, it is.
He looked around at his team.
Any questions?
Eleanor frowned slightly.
What's your angle here, Jameson? This isn't about boosting fair attendance, is it?
For a moment, Jameson's showman persona slipped, revealing something harder underneath.
This is my shot at something bigger. If we pull this off, we could take this show national, maybe even global. Humans versus aliens. The ultimate showdown.
And if someone gets hurt? Dwayne asked quietly.
Nobody gets hurt,
Jameson said firmly.
Not badly, anyway. We're professionals. We know how to make it look good without causing real damage.
He clapped his hands together.
Now, let's get ready to put on the greatest show this fair has ever seen.
By 7 o'clock, the tournament area had been transformed. The jousting field now featured a wrestling-style ring surrounded by wooden stands filled with eager spectators. Colorful banners bearing medieval-style depictions of the competitors hung from poles, and torches illuminated the area as the sun began to set. Jameson, now dressed in an elaborate ringmaster's outfit that combined Renaissance flair with wrestling theatricality, stood in the center of the ring with a microphone.
Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all configurations,
he boomed, his voice carrying across the crowd stands.
Welcome to the first ever Interstellar Smackdown!
The crowd roared with approval.
Tonight, we settle an age-old question. Does advanced technology triumph over human spirit and skill?
Jameson continued, pacing the ring with practiced showmanship.
Our alien friends claim their ancestors had space travel while humans were still figuring out the printing press. Well, tonight we'll see if all that fancy tech can stand up to good old-fashioned muscle and medieval ingenuity.
More cheers erupted from the stands. Dallas sat in the front row, practically vibrating with excitement. Beside him, May looked considerably less enthusiastic.
Our first match,
Jameson announced,
pits the reptilian scholar Krill against our own Sir William, the Widowmaker.
Bill entered the ring in full medieval regalia, though his outfit had been modified to accommodate wrestling moves. He brandished a wooden sword, which he then ceremoniously set aside to show he would fight with bare hands. Krill entered from the opposite side, his enhanced scale armor glinting in the torchlight. The plates moved fluidly with his body, adjusting and realigning with each step. His emerald scales had darkened to a more intimidating forest green, and his crest was fully extended.
Begin!
Jameson called, quickly exiting the ring. Krill circled cautiously, his armor plate shifting slightly with each movement. Bill approached with the measured pace of a veteran wrestler, showing no fear despite his opponent's technological advantage.
"Your armor is impressive,"
Bill commented, testing the distance between them.
"but let's see how it handles this."
He launched forward with surprising speed for his size, aiming a grapple at Krill's midsection. The alien's armor immediately hardened at the point of impact, the scales locking together to form an impenetrable barrier.
Ineffective, Krill stated calmly. This armor technology withstood projectiles traveling at 3 times the speed of sound on my home world.
"Is that right?"
Bill grinned through his beard.
"Then I guess I'll have to try something else."
Instead of pulling back, he adjusted his grip, fingers finding the connecting tissue between scale plates. With a sudden twist of his massive forearms, he tore through what should have been impenetrable scales, eliciting a shocked gasp from Krill and the crowd.
That's impossible!
Krill exclaimed, his crest flattening with surprise.
Nothing's impossible in the ring, son,"
Bill replied, using Krill's momentary shock to execute a textbook suplex that sent the alien crashing to the mat. In the front row, May leaned toward Dallas.
How'd he do that? Those scales should be virtually indestructible.
Dallas shook his head, equally baffled.
"I have no idea. Maybe human strength is greater than Krill calculated."
In the ring, Krill recovered quickly, rolling away from a follow-up attack. His scientific mind raced, analyzing what had just happened. The human had somehow identified a structural weakness in his armor that even he wasn't aware of. Fascinating, if alarming.
Adaptation required,
Krill muttered to himself, watching Bill circle for another attack. This time, when Bill charged, Krill didn't rely on his armor. Instead, he sidestepped with reptilian quickness, using his opponent's momentum against him. It wasn't enough to take down the larger human, but it earned an appreciative murmur from the crowd. Krill's crest rose slightly as he heard the reaction. These humans weren't just watching a combat demonstration, they were evaluating performance, appreciating technique. This was much about entertainment as victory. With this realization, Krill altered his strategy. He began incorporating more theatrical moves, mimicking wrestling techniques he had studied in Earth broadcasts. When Bill came at him again, Krill executed a remarkably smooth arm drag, transitioning into a flashy flip that landed him on his feet. The crowd roared with approval.
"Lizard's got moves!"
Someone shouted from the stands. Bill paused, a glimmer of respect in his eyes.
"Not bad," he acknowledged, "but we'll see how you handle this."
What followed was a surprising, balanced exchange of wrestling maneuvers, with Bill's power and experience countered by Krill's agility and growing theatrical flair. The alien had quickly grasped that this was not merely combat, but performance, and he adapted accordingly. In the end, Bill secured victory with a devastating finishing move that combined a medieval wrestling technique with modern showmanship. A battering ram that drove Krill into the mat with enough force to trigger a 3-count pin. But as Bill helped Krill to his feet afterward, the crowd cheered for both competitors. Krill's crest extended fully as he raised Bill's hand in a gesture of sportsmanship he had seen in wrestling broadcasts.
"Fascinating cultural exchange,"
Krill commented as they exited the ring together.
"I underestimated the psychological component of human combat sports."
Bill chuckled.
"Well, that's what makes it fun, son."
The second match featured Puff against Lady Eleanor of Essex, introduced with much fanfare by Jameson.
"The gaseous genius from Nebulous faces Earth's most fearsome female fighter,"
Jameson proclaimed as Eleanor entered the ring in modified medieval attire that emphasized mobility while maintaining period aesthetics. Puff bounced into the ring, containment suit now enhanced with swirling blue-green lights that pulsed with the movement of the gases inside. The force field technology had been upgraded, creating a faint visual distortion around the suit.
Query, combat parameters? Puff's echoing voice asked.
Same as before, Eleanor replied, stretching her arms. Last one standing wins.
Computation complete. Victory probability 98.7% in favor of this unit, Puff declared. Force field technology prevents physical contact while allowing offensive capability.
Eleanor smiled. We'll see about that.
She moved with the careful gait of someone assessing an opponent, circling Puff's containment suit. The alien remained stationary, seemingly confident in the impenetrability of the force field. When Eleanor finally struck, it was with blinding speed. A perfect aimed elbow strike that should have bounced harmlessly off the field. Instead, it connected with a containment suit, sending Puff bouncing forward with a surprised whirl of gases.
Force field breach! Impossible!
Puff exclaimed, gases swirling chaotically inside the containment suit.
Nothing's impossible for the executioner,
Eleanor replied, following up with a series of spectacular wrestling moves that sent Puff bouncing around the ring like a beach ball. In the stands, May grabbed Alice's arm. Okay, that's definitely not right. There's no way she should be able to penetrate that force field with her bare hands.
Maybe they're not as advanced as they thought,
Dallas suggested weakly. Or maybe Jameson's cheating somehow, May countered, eyes narrowing as she watched the match. Inside the ring, Puff was adapting to the unexpected situation. By rapidly shifting his gaseous form within the suit, he created momentum and bounced back with surprising force after each impact. What had started as Eleanor dominating the match was transforming into an aerial display, with Puff using the ring ropes and turnbuckles to launch counterattacks. The crowd was loving it, cheering each time Puff bounced off the ropes over Eleanor's head. The alien had turned a disadvantage into entertainment, understanding now what Krill had realized earlier. This was performance as much as competition. Atmospheric density manipulation initiated, Puff announced, spinning rapidly within the containment suit to build momentum before launching toward Eleanor. She sidestepped at the last moment, grabbing the suit mid-flight and executing a perfect slam that drove Puff into the mat. The impact was controlled, harmful to neither Puff nor the containment suit, but definitive enough for a 3 count. Victory, human competitor, Puff acknowledged as Eleanor helped the containment suit upright. Reassessment of combat capabilities necessary. Eleanor nodded respectfully.
Good match. You adapted quickly.
Query, how did you penetrate force field technology? Puff asked as they exited the ring together. Eleanor tapped her wristband.
Ancient human secret,
she replied with a wink. The third match featured Roan against the Black Knight, revealed to be Dwayne when he removed his helmet with theatrical flair. The crowd gasped appropriately at his imposing size, even though many of them had clearly seen him around the fair earlier.
The Silicon Sentinel from Magmora faces Earth's mightiest warrior!
Jameson announced, building anticipation with his ringmaster's cadence. Roan entered the ring, orange energy occasionally visible through cracks in his obsidian surface. His liquid metal armor flowed across his body like quicksilver, forming patterns that seemed both decorative and functional.
I have studied your Earth combat sports extensively,
Roan announced, his deep voice resonating through the ring.
This shall be an educational experience for both of us.
Dwayne nodded respectfully. I look forward to it. He carried no weapons, relying solely on his impressive physique and wrestling skill. As the match began, it quickly became apparent that Roan's liquid metal armor was functioning exactly as designed. Each time Dwayne struck, the metal flowed around the impact point, absorbing and redistributing the energy harmlessly throughout Roan's form. Remarkable, Dwayne commented, after several ineffective attacks. Your armor adapts to each strike.
The technology was perfected 50,000 years ago, Roan replied. It analyzes impact patterns and reconfigures accordingly.
Dwayne nodded thoughtfully. Then I'll have to try something unexpected. He stepped back, measuring the distance between them, then launched forward with a perfectly executed elbow strike aimed at the central mass of Roan's armor. The point of impact glowed briefly at the moment of connection, and suddenly the flowing liquid metal solidified, freezing in place. Roan's orange energy flared through wider cracks in his surface, the alien equivalent of a shocked expression.
Resonance disruption. How?
Before he could finish the question, Dwayne followed with a devastating clothesline that sent Roan crashing to the mat, his temporarily solidified armor unable to absorb the impact. In the stands, Dallas and May exchanged concerned looks.
Okay, something is definitely wrong,
Dallas admitted.
There's no way these wrestlers should be able to counter alien technology this effectively without help.
You think? May replied sarcastically. She stood up. I'm going to talk to Jameson. As May made her way toward Jameson, who was watching from ringside, the match continued. Roan had recovered from the initial shock and was now analyzing what had happened. The human had somehow generated a resonant frequency that temporarily altered the molecular structure of his liquid metal armor. Fascinating and concerning. But, like his fellow aliens before him, Roan was beginning to understand the true nature of this event. It wasn't merely combat, it was theater, and in theater, adaptation and audience engagement were key. Roan began incorporating more dramatic falls and reactions, altering his form slightly for maximum visual impact. When Dwayne executed a powerful slam, Roan ensured his obsidian surface cracked in visually striking patterns, orange energy flaring for dramatic effect. The crowd responded enthusiastically to his showmanship. Meanwhile, May had cornered Jameson at the edge of the ring.
What kind of game are you playing? She demanded. There's no way your wrestlers should be able to counter alien technology like this.
Jameson maintained his showman's smile.
What can I say? Human ingenuity is full of surprises.
This isn't ingenuity, it's cheating,
May accused.
Those wristbands your wrestlers are wearing, they're tech, aren't they? Some kind of countermeasure specifically designed for each alien systems.
For a moment, Jameson's facade slipped, revealing a flash of something harder. Then the smile returned, more genuine this time.
You're sharp, miss, but you're missing the point.
Which is?
I'm not trying to humiliate your friends,
Jameson explained, his voice dropping to a conversational tone beneath the crowd's cheers.
I'm creating entertainment that celebrates both human and alien abilities. My wrestlers know how to make everyone look good while still delivering a spectacular show.
May frowned, not entirely convinced.
So this whole thing is rigged?
Choreographed, Jameson corrected. Like all good wrestling, the best matches tell a story with ups and downs for both sides. Your friends are catching on quickly.
He nodded toward the ring, where Roan was now fully embracing the theatrical aspects of the match, to the crowd's delight. In the ring, the match was reaching its climax. Dwayne executed his signature move, a thunderous power slam aptly named the Avalanche, to secure victory. But even in defeat, Roan played his part perfectly, his obsidian surface cracking dramatically before he raised Dwayne's hand in victory. As they exited the ring, Roan's orange energy pulsed with what appeared to be satisfaction rather than disappointment.
A most educational experience,
he commented to Dwayne.
The performance aspect of combat adds layers I had not previously considered.
Dwayne nodded respectfully. You're a natural. Ever considered a career in the ring? During the intermission, the three aliens conferred in the preparation tent, comparing notes on their matches.
The humans are using technology to counter our systems,
Krill observed, his scales shifting to a thoughtful blue-green.
Those wristbands they wear emit targeted countermeasures specific to each of our defensive capabilities.
Puff concurred, gases forming analytical patterns.
Force field disruption requires precise frequency matching that cannot be achieved accidentally.
Roan's surface cracked with orange energy.
The resonant frequency that solidified my armor was too exact to be coincidental.
But that's not the point, Krill continued, his crest rising slightly. This event isn't about technological superiority. It's about entertainment and storytelling through physical performance.
Affirmative, Puff agreed. Crowd engagement increases 237% when we incorporate theatrical elements.
For the final match, we should embrace this aspect fully,
Roan suggested.
Modify our technology for maximum visual and narrative impact.
Krill nodded, scales brightening. A wise adaptation. In this context, the spectacle is as important as the function.
Outside, Jameson approached Dallas and May, who were still debating the ethics of the situation.
Your friends are quick studies,
Jameson commented, dropping into an empty seat beside them.
They figured out the true nature of professional wrestling faster than most human rookies. Which is?
Dallas asked, though his expression suggested he already knew.
The perfect blend of athletics and theater, Jameson replied. The greatest wrestlers aren't necessarily the strongest or the most technically skilled. They're the ones who can tell the most compelling story through their performance.
May crossed her arms. And the rig technology?
Jameson shrugged unapologetically.
A necessary dramatic device. The audience needs to believe the humans have a fighting chance, or there's no tension, no story. And what's the story for the final match? Dallas asked.
Jameson's eyes gleamed with professional passion.
The ultimate underdog tale. Humans facing underwhelming odds, using every trick in the book to stand against superior alien technology. But here's the twist. In the end, it's not about who wins or loses, but about mutual respect forged through combat.
That's actually not terrible, May admitted reluctantly.
I've been doing this for 20 years, Jameson replied. I know how to tell a story that resonates. He stood up. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to prepare for the final bout. After all, he grinned, I'm coming out of retirement for one night only.
As night fell fully over the fair, the tournament area was transformed. Additional torches and lights created a dramatic atmosphere, and the crowd had swelled to 3 times its original size as word spread about the spectacular alien-human matches. Jameson stood in the center of the ring, now dressed in his full wrestling regalia, an outfit that combined his sovereign character with Renaissance elements. A crown adorned his head, and a regal cape draped from his shoulders, but his wrestling tights and boots were unmistakably modern.
Ladies and gentlemen, and beings of all designations,
he boomed into the microphone.
Welcome to the main event of the evening. A tag team spectacular that will go down in history as the first ever Interspecies Wrestling Championship.
The crowd roared with excitement.
In this corner,
Jameson continued, gesturing dramatically,
representing Earth and human ingenuity, Sir William the Widowmaker, Lady Eleanor of Essex, and myself, the Sovereign.
Bill and Eleanor entered the ring to enthusiastic applause, taking position behind Jameson.
And in this corner,
Jameson announced, sweeping his arm toward the opposite side of the ring,
representing the advanced civilization of the cosmos, Krill of Sorum, Puff of Nebulos, and Roan of Magmora.
The aliens entered with a new flourish. They had modified their combat gear as discussed, emphasizing visual spectacle over pure function. Krill's scales now flash with color when struck, creating a dazzling light show. Puff's containment suit emitted harmless vapor clouds during impacts. Roan's liquid metal formed elaborate sculptural shapes during movements, creating a hypnotic visual display. "The rules are simple," Jameson declared. "Standard tag team protocol, with pins, submissions, or ringouts determining elimination. The last team with members standing will be declared the superior civilization and receive this." He held up an elaborate championship belt that combined medieval craftsmanship with cosmic motifs. "The first ever Interstellar Championship Belt." The match began with Krill facing off against Bill, each now familiar with the other's style and capabilities. What followed was a far more elaborate dance than their earlier bout, with both competitors incorporating spectacular moves and near falls that kept the audience on the edge of their seats. When Krill tagged in Puff and Bill tagged in Eleanor, the match shifted to a high-flying exhibition. Puff's bouncing capabilities paired with Eleanor's acrobatic style created an aerial display that drew gasps and applause from the crowd. Throughout it all, Jameson provided ringside commentary building the narrative of human determination against overwhelming alien technology. When he finally tagged himself in against Roan, the crowd reached a fever pitch of excitement. "The Sovereign returns to the ring after 5 long years," Jameson proclaimed, playing to the audience before engaging with Roan. "Let's see if I still have what it takes." Jameson proved he hadn't lost his skills, executing signature moves that the crowd remembered from his glory days. Roan matched him beat for beat, having studied human wrestling broadcasts extensively. The match ebbed and flowed, with momentum shifting between the teams. Each competitor took turns tagging in and out, creating numerous crowd-pleasing moments and near victories for both sides. As the match reached its climax, Dallas and May, caught up in the spectacle despite their earlier reservations, found themselves at ringside, cheering on both teams with equal enthusiasm. During a particularly intense exchange between Jameson and all 3 aliens, Dallas caught May's eye and nodded toward the ring. She understood immediately, and when Jameson backed toward their side of the ring, Dallas created a momentary distraction by pretending to argue with a nearby official. In that split second of Jameson's diverted attention, the aliens executed a perfectly coordinated triple team maneuver. Krill's scales flashed blindingly, Puff created a disorienting vapor cloud, and Roan used the confusion to execute a spectacular finishing move that combined all 3 aliens' abilities. The crowd fell silent for a breathless moment as Jameson lay motionless on the mat. Roan covered him for the pin, and the referee, a fair employee hastily recruited for the role, counted to 3. The audience erupted in astonished cheers as Jameson remained down, the aliens victorious. It was an unexpected ending. The script, if there was one, had clearly called for a human victory or perhaps a diplomatic draw, but the aliens, with a little help from their human friends, had rewritten the ending. For a tense moment, it seemed like the deviation might cause problems, but then Jameson stirred, and a smile spread across his face. He allowed the aliens to help him to his feet, and in a gesture of true sportsmanship, he raised Roan's obsidian hand high. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jameson announced, his voice rough with exertion, but still carrying the ringmaster's authority, "I give you your Interstellar champions!" He presented the championship belt to the aliens, who accepted it with appropriate theatrical reverence. But then Jameson raised his hands for silence. "Today, we've witnessed more than just a competition," he continued. "We've witnessed the birth of something entirely new. Interspecies wrestling entertainment." He gestured broadly, encompassing both teams. "This
will become an annual event at the Fair of Ages, and I hereby invite both teams back next year for a rematch."
The crowd roared its approval, and even May found herself clapping enthusiastically. As both teams exited the ring together, Dallas caught up with Jameson.
"That wasn't how you planned to end it, was it?"
Jameson chuckled, wincing slightly as he stretched his back.
"The best matches sometimes go off script. Your friends learn the most important wrestling lesson of all. Read the crowd and give them what they want."
He clapped Dallas on the shoulder.
"Besides, a good rematch requires the champions to defend their title next year."
As night settled fully over the fair, a massive bonfire was lit in the central gathering area. Performers, vendors, and patrons mingled together, the day's usual medieval pretenses gradually giving way to more relaxed modern behavior as closing time approached. At a long table near the fire, an unusual gathering had formed. The three aliens sat alongside the human wrestlers, with Dallas and May completing the circle. Mugs of mead and plates of food covered the table, and the conversation flowed as freely as the drinks.
"The structural weakness in my scale armor," Krill was saying to Bill. "How did you identify it so quickly?"
Bill tapped his wristband.
Trade secret. But I'll tell you this, it wasn't just technology. You need the human touch to know exactly where and when to apply the technique.
Query, force field disruption methodology.
Puff asked Eleanor, gases swirling inquisitively at the containment suit. She leaned forward conspirationally.
"Electromagnetic pulse calibrated to your specific frequency. But the timing and placement, that's all skill, baby."
Roan was engaged in deep conversation with Dwayne, who was explaining the concept of kayfabe, the wrestling practice of maintaining fictional storylines and characters as real.
"So you pretend the outcomes aren't predetermined, even though everyone knows they are?" Roan asked,
orange energy pulsing thoughtfully beneath his surface.
"It's not about deception," Dwayne explained. "It's about collective storytelling. The audience participates by willingly suspending their disbelief. They know it's choreographed, but they choose to engage with the narrative anyway." "Fascinating," Roan replied. "On Magmara, we have similar traditions in our theaters, where performers and audience share a mutual understanding that what they're witnessing is simultaneously real and unreal."
Jameson, now dressed in casual clothes but still wearing his championship medallion, raised his mug.
"To the cultural exchange, through the universal language of beating the crap out of each other."
Everyone laughed and raised their drinks in response.
"You know," Jameson continued, "this could be the start of something big. There's a whole circuit of Renaissance fairs around the country. You folks are interested, we could take this show on the road." "Intriguing proposal," Krill replied, his scales shifting to a contemplative blue. "The anthropological research potential is significant."
Atmospheric sampling opportunities across diverse geographic regions,
Puff added enthusiastically.
"And I could finally experience more of Earth's entertainment traditions firsthand,"
Roan said, orange energy crackling with interest.
Hold up,
May interrupted.
Are you seriously proposing a traveling alien wrestling show disguised as a Renaissance fair attraction?
"When you put it that way, it sounds ridiculous,"
Jameson admitted.
"But think about it. What better way to foster interspecies understanding than through shared entertainment? Politics and diplomacy have their place, but nothing brings people together like a good story through spectacular physical performance."
Dallas raised his mug again.
"I'm in. Professor of medieval history by day, manager of alien wrestlers by night. My tenure committee will love it."
May rolled her eyes, but couldn't suppress a smile.
This is completely absurd.
"Welcome to Earth,"
Krill replied, his crest rising in what they now recognized as his version of amusement.
Where the absurd becomes everyday reality.
Query, next year's format? Puff asked, bouncing slightly in excitement.
I'm thinking bigger.
Jameson said, eyes gleaming with professional enthusiasm.
More competitors, more elaborate storylines. Maybe your species could bring performers from your own worlds, showcase traditional combat styles in exhibition matches. A true interstellar cultural festival, Roan mused.
As the conversation continued, plans growing more elaborate with each round of drinks, the bonfire cast long shadows across the fairgrounds. Renaissance trappings mingled with alien technology, medieval fantasies with cosmic realities, creating something unique, a moment of genuine connection across species and traditions. In the morning, they would go their separate ways, the aliens continuing their Earth tour, the wrestlers returning to their various post-ring careers, Dallas back to his university lectures, and May to her engineering projects. But something had changed. Some small bridge built between worlds that hadn't existed before. And somewhere in that vast cosmos, metaphorical eyebrows were being raised at the championship belt, now proudly displayed in the aliens' ship. Proof that sometimes the most unexpected cultural exchanges are the most meaningful. The universe might never be the same. But then again, that was rather the point.